This is the July 11th, 2011 Planning and Zoning Commission. Jill, will you call the roll call, please?
Nancy Pease.
Here.
Jim Frederick.
Here.
Connie Yoshimura.
Here.
Arthur Isham. Bruce Phelps. Stacy Dean.
Here.
Terry Parks.
Here.
Dana Pruz.
Here.
Richard Wilson.
Here.
Thank you. In your packet are the minutes of the meetings for June 6, 2011. Are there any questions or corrections to the draft minutes? Seeing and hearing none, the minutes are approved for June 6, 2011. Mr. Fredericks, would you please do the disclosures?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Pease, have you got anything to disclose this evening?
No, I do not.
Mr. Wilson?
No, I did not.
Mr. Parks?
I do not.
Ms. Pruz?
I do not.
Ms. Dean?
No.
Ms. Yoshimura?
Yes, in the matter of 2011-073 regarding the Eklutna Master Plan, I would like to disclose that in the past, I have had a business relationship with Eklutna as a broker and 20-some-odd years ago as a partner in Kempton Park subdivision. I occasionally sell single-family lots in Powder Ridge subdivision, but I am not in any way involved in the case before us this evening.
Thank you for that. And I have nothing.
Okay. Moving on to item D in the consent agenda, resolutions for approval. Does anyone have any comment or wish to pull any items from the resolutions for approval? From the consent agenda, excuse me. Minutes? Seeing and hearing.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Ms. Pease.
I'd like to pull D1D.
Okay. D1D. I will be abstaining from voting on the consent agenda for items D1D and D1E as I was a party to those transactions. Ms. Pease.
Yes. There were two.
Excuse me just a second. Hold on. We need to approve the consent.
Approve the minute.
And then we go to the next item.
Okay. I'm sorry. First, we need to approve the consent agenda item and then go to the items that have been pulled. Okay. Does anyone else have any issues with the consent agenda item or wish to make any other comments? Okay. So those items are approved. Now, Ms. Pease, D1D.
Yes. There were two places which I wish to offer a correction. On page 5 of the resolution, top of the page A, so it's 9A. The wording differs somewhat from the wording of the motion that we approved, and we have the minutes. We didn't approve them yet, but the minutes for this, if you look in your minutes, are on page 14. The motion was made that the Potter Valley Road will have 4-foot paved shoulders unless found not necessary in consultation with the non-motorized trails coordinator, and that's been changed to if required. And I made the motion with the idea that the burden of the proof would be to find them not necessary on the assumption that they are necessary, and that was clearly stated in the findings. The fact that it's a collector and it has limited sight lines and steep grades and is heavily used already by lots of non-motorized users. So I did want to ask that we stick with the original wording
From the minute?
from the minutes.
Okay.
And that's, I think, what we traditionally do is adhere to the wording of the minutes unless there's some confusion or really poor grammar.
Okay, so could you restate the motion then, please, for me? I'm sorry.
The motion is, the first part of this, 9A, is fine. So if we pick up with the words typical cross-section contained in the hillside development plan with 4-foot paved shoulders each side of the road, but then strike if required and put in unless found not necessary, and then continue the sentence in consultation with the non-motorized trail coordinator.
Thank you, Nancy.
And again, that's from page 14 of our June 6th draft minutes.
Are there any other changes?
Yes, I have one other. That is,
One moment, please. Point of order.
Okay, do they have to approve that?
They have a motion and approve and rejection
Okay.
for the first correction.
All right, for the first correction, there has been a motion for approval with the change and it's seconded by Mr. Frederick. Are there any objections? Then that correction is approved. All right, Ms. Pease.
the second is on page 8 of our resolution. It's number 19. And once again, I wanted to stick more closely with the wording that we had in our minutes, the wording of the motion as we proved it. That wording is on page 15 of the draft minutes. And it said to have a plat note which ensures dedication of the pathways to enable permanent public use. And in earlier conversation with Ms. Chambers and Ms. O'Brien, I was informed that the word dedication does not convey anything beyond the usual public hearing process on a plat. So I'm all right with not having the dedication, if that is in fact correct.
Madam Chair, if it's shown on the plat, it's being if the trail easement or public use easement is shown on the plat, recording of the plat dedicates that easement.
Okay. But I would like to put in the language, not stating the trails, but I would like to have the wording ensuring. Well, I guess I would like to go with the words we had, which are ensures dedication of the pathways to enable permanent public pedestrian use. And the most important word there is the permanent use. The current wording, placing a note on the plat stating the trails are for public use, does not convey the intent of a permanent public pedestrian connection. And that was spoken to in the findings.
So are you putting that in the form of a motion?
Yes, I am. So it would then read, placing a note on the plat which ensures dedication of the pathways to enable permanent public pedestrian use.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second that. There we go.
Okay. It's moved and seconded by Mr. Frederick. Is there any objection or further discussion? Okay, then that correction is approved. Okay, so now we need a motion. Okay, all right. So now we need a motion to approve the resolution as revised. May I have a first, please? Mr. Parks, thank you. Seconded by Mr. Fredericks. Is there any further discussion? Then that resolution is approved as amended. Okay. All right. Okay, we now move on to item E, unfinished business and action of public hearings in the case of 2010-076. It's my understanding that there has been supplemental material presented to commission members after the close of the public hearing. So a decision has to be made whether or not to accept any additional supplemental information, which therefore we have been advised would also require the reopening of the public hearing, which also would require, again, public notice. What is the wish of the commission? Mr. Parks.
I think that we've had plenty of public hearing at this point and recommend that we do not have any more public hearing on this particular matter.
Okay. Ms. Pease, you were also in the queue?
There we go. I would just agree with that.
Okay. Is there any objection to continuing with the hearing on, continuing with case 2010-076, the petitioner being MOA, NPM&E, and the request is design study report for a public road and its approval? All right, as long as there's no objection, we will continue. I recognize that there has been a public hearing and there has been a lot of discussion, and I also understand that there was a physical inspection of the proposed routes a few weeks ago. What is the desire of the Commission at this time? Mr. Parks.
I'd like to make a motion that under case 2010-076 that we approve the alternative B with department's recommendation located on page 7 of the memorandum dated February 7, 2011.
Okay. That motion has been seconded by Mr. Pruse. Do you want to speak to your motion?
I would. We spent long hours and a field trip out to look at this property, and I think that it meets all the requirements that are possessed in the design study, which is provide emergency vehicle access and disaster egress from the lower hillside or the upper hillside. And with the information that was provided to Commission from the applicant when we did the walkthrough, that there is no impact on the wetlands in that area. That was in July that we took a trip up there. And it should provide a safe and non-motorized access to Bear Valley Elementary School, which this route does. It also meets all the requirements, or several of the requirements of the Hillside Transportation Plan, which talks about the being a preferred route consistent with the proposed collector routes found on the Hillside Sub-Area Transportation Study with the removal of the wetlands issues. This would connect with Hillside Drive and 155th and provide access to the Shangri-La subdivision as were required. The B route would also allow traffic calming near the Rabbit Creek School, will slow traffic before it goes to the Rabbit Creek intersection of Hillside Drive, and it meets the goals of the Hillside District Plan, goals 2, 3, 4, 8, and 9.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Pruse?
Just a point of clarification, where would the terminus of Route B be? Would it be where it intersects the proposed Route A, or would it be before it turns west?
Well, I guess as far as the money would go, I guess that's the issue that we really have on that one. But I would expect that it would go to the right-of-way on 155th.
So it would terminate at the point before where it would...
Well, that's what we've been told.
Okay.
Do you have any further questions?
I just wanted to make that clarification.
All right, thank you, Ms. Pease.
I also went on the field trip, and I will not. Are we talking? We're speaking to the motion, correct? Okay. I will not be supporting this motion for a number of reasons. One, the idea that it would slow traffic to wrap this around the school playground, I don't think that's accurate. Cars still have quite a straightaway going around the playground, and I feel that it actually separates, or exposing two sides of the school rather than just one side to collector-level traffic is actually deleterious to the school playground. The map attached to the staff packet does show that alternative B crosses some wetlands. In addition, connection to Bear Valley, where we were told, and the map it further validates this, is not very likely. There are wetlands along the Hillside Drive-Jamie intersection, so to connect to Jamie that way would be a temptation, but it would have to go through Section 36, which is dedicated municipal parkland. The additional cost of $700,000, that's 10% additional cost. I don't think our fiscally conservative municipality would appreciate that. In addition, we did we saw those wetlands along the Hillside Drive alignment, and I verified that with staff in communication today. So going on to the Hillside Drive alignment and heading toward those wetlands is not a good way to connect up the parcels. If you look at your map attached to the issue response summary, we were shown by the staff when we were out there that the Shangri-La cul-de-sacs actually provide some good ways to connect into Bear Valley by going through wetland, between wetland areas, in the upland gaps, as opposed to Jamie extension, which would cross. The Hillside Sub-Area Transportation Study has been supplanted by the Hillside District Plan. The Hillside District Plan definitely gives flexibility to align routes based on natural features. And in this case, we saw when we walked up to the two crossings of Alternative B that there's a very active stream erosion condition there. There's an active cut bank with no vegetation on it at the southerly proposed crossing. We also, in looking at those two crossings, were impressed by the depth of the gorge or the relief there, and we're told that probably culverts would not work here. Culverts are subject to glaciation and impede wildlife traffic or wildlife corridors, and would of course require more fill. So we were told that probably those would be bridges, which leads me to wonder if the cost would perhaps go up, and I don't know if the consultant's here to answer that or not. And finally, the community councils have, and I believe the Golden View Road Service area, but I'm not sure. The community council anyway, Rabbit Creek Community Council, has, which was instrumental in getting funding for this, envisions a collector which will relieve traffic from Golden View. And to make it a collector and put in an additional jog with right angle turns and intersections is not keeping with the idea of easy, convenient access out to Rabbit Creek Road. And finally, this creates driveways from about, looks like 4 or 5 lots, and the whole idea of a collector system is not to have the driveways at close intervals. So for all of those reasons, the municipality, or many of those reasons, some of them might be my own, the municipalities recommended alternative A. And again, just summarizing, for the natural conditions along the creek, the wetlands, the cost, the intent of a collector, the protection of the sort of the ambience of the school, it's I'm going to support the staff's recommendation.
Ms. Pease, do you want to put that in the form of an amendment to the overriding, to the existing motion that's on the table?
Yes, I would. I will propose to amend it so that it would be approval of alternative A.
Do we have a second to that motion? See, Mr. Fredericks, you're seconding that motion? Okay. I can assume that we will need to use our machines to vote. A yes vote to this motion would, in essence, be for alternative A. A no vote keeps this case in front of the Commission for consideration for alternate B. Please use your machines.
Mr. Frederick? Your vote didn't show up.
That motion fails. The original motion is now back on the table regarding the approval of alternate B in case 2010-076. The original motion was made by Mr. Parks and seconded by Commissioner Pruz. Is there any further discussion of the motion?
I have a question.
Yes, Ms. Pease.
Two questions, actually. Is there any staff that can tell us whether the additional money is available, the 10% additional or the additional money to connect down to the Shangri-La East?
Through the chair, Ms. Pease, the design consultants are in the audience tonight, if you wish to address that question to them.
Yes, through the chair. If I could, how much of the project is funded, and would the additional, three questions. How much of the project is funded? Does the alternative B reflect bridges or culverts? And if bridges are required, can we expect to see a higher cost?
Yeah, my name's Todd Jacobson. I'm the project manager representing the municipality of Anchorage. The first question, right now there's the original 2008 legislative grant was for $4.5 million. A month ago or less, actually, Governor Parnell approved an additional $700,000. So cumulatively, we have $5.2 million right now, which is insufficient to complete the project. Our approach at this time would be to phase the project and look for additional money. Right now, that's been identified as a priority. And so next year, the municipality will be going to the state once again to try to get additional funding to complete the entire project. Again, the objective is to get the road to the Shangri-La subdivision property line.
Second question was, is there a likelihood that bridges would be needed if alternative B is built? And the third part of that question is, are bridges generally or more or less expensive? Would one expect the price to go up or down?
Yeah, I can answer part of that question. Steve can help me with the other. As far as whether or not bridges will be required, it's likely, based on some of the information we've now obtained from the regulatory agencies. They wouldn't be as big of a bridge, but cumulatively the span would exceed the alternative A bridge. There would be approximately 110 feet of span on alternative B with the two bridge crossings, whereas alternative A, I believe, is 90. The height is less than alternative A. Alternative A, I believe, is 45 feet, whereas the height of the two bridge crossings on alternative B would be approximately 25 feet.
Okay. And then are you able to give a reasonable professional judgment as to whether bridges are more costly than the culverts that were at one time proposed for alternative B?
Yeah, I'm going to let Steve address that. Thanks.
Generally speaking, a concrete bridge is going to be more expensive than a culvert. The fill and the materials and installation of a culvert. The bridge will be typically more expensive. I would expect so here.
Okay. And
Would you please, excuse me, would you please identify yourself
I'm Steve Perry. I'm a design consultant for the project.
with,
USKH.
thank you.
One more?
Yes, Ms. Pease.
If the funding is $5.2 million, and from what you've indicated, the price of alternative B would go up from $7.7 million, and you're planning to phase it, what are you able to build with $5.2 million if you go along the B alignment? Or either alignment, I guess we should know either.
I would expect that, maybe for alternative B, we could get down to the crossings themselves. It's tough to say, but in alternative A, we've got 5.2, we need a little over 7, so it's conceivable we could get to, the bridge is iffy, whether we can get the bridge in or not. We've got another several hundred feet past the bridge to get to the Shangri-La property line. And that may be, we may be able to get the bridge, but just barely.
Okay, so
It's tough to say.
what I'm hearing is with A, it sounds as if the cost might be a little more known and you're able possibly to get the bridge, so to get to the other bank. And maybe with B, you might get to the crossings with $5.2 million. And there are 2 crossings.
Yes.
Okay.
If I could just add to that, just to clarify, Commissioner Pruz, I believe you're asking where the terminus of alternative B was going to be. Right now, we're making the assumption that regardless which alternative is constructed, we are going to get to the Shangri-La property line. And in this case, it would be tying into the Shangri-La East roadway that's being constructed as we speak, which is basically in the middle of that lot. So.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Parks, do you have some additional comments?
When we were on our field trip, I asked the question how much effort and time had been used in estimating costs and design on the A route versus the B route. Can you recall what you told me on that trip?
I think about 500 or something. Yeah. Yeah. With the design. Yeah, for alternative A, I think we're approximately about 65% complete on the design. Of course, we haven't done anything on alternative B yet.
Okay.
So
basically, what you're saying is that in your design study, you looked at Plan B only from a cost standpoint and really have not put a pencil to the A route. Is that correct?
the opposite.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, B route. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And then the other comment that I would have is that it's my understanding and my experience with building subdivisions is that when you have a road right-of-way, that road right-of-way is generally used prior to taking public or private property for public use. In this particular route, the B route, we see several, I can't tell you how many because part of it's not subdivided at this point, but at least 2 lots, maybe 3 or 4, are going to be taken off the tax rolls or at least reduced off the tax rolls, versus if you take the right-of-way that's existing on that road currently, plus the right-of-way that's on Section 36, there would be very little, if any, land taken other than crossing to get to the location that you desire, which is the center of the Shangri-La property. Is that a correct statement also?
Yeah, it's largely correct. We have an acreage amount that would be required for acquisition for each alternative, and essentially the alternative A requires double the acreage than alternative B does.
And the right-of-ways already exist currently down 155th all the way to the Shangri-La property. You would not have to go across any wetlands at that point in time. Is that correct?
To 155th, correct.
That's correct. If you come
There would be a little, there's going to be right-of-way acquisition required because of the curvature of the road.
I was talking about wetlands, not right-of-way.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Ms. Pease, do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, I wondered if we should go into the committee of the whole, because it doesn't seem that we have all the information before us yet. So I guess I would like to move to go into the committee of the whole.
Do we have a second for that motion? Mr. Frederick. We are in the committee of the whole, but let me make a comment that we should not be considering any additional information that has been laid on the table after the close of the public hearing or any other information that we have received by email. By doing so, we will be required to reopen the public hearing, which again will require a 30-day notice. So please confine your questions to that information that we have received prior to or at the close of the public hearing. Okay. With that, Ms. Pease.
Yes, I assume we are looking at the staff report, however.
I apologize to the commission members. We need to vote to go into the committee of the whole. Does anyone have any objection to going into the committee of the whole? Seeing and hearing none, we are now in the committee of the whole. Okay.
Yes, Madam Chair. With regard to the potential loss of developable residential properties, I'm looking at the map just attached to the issue response summary, and I see that alternative A crosses two they look to be fairly substantial lots. Are those two lots developable? The fragmented, at least one the larger fragment, would those be developable? And likewise, I see alternative B crossing, it appears to, I can't tell how many lots alternative B crosses, to tell the truth. So I'm wondering where the figures of the loss of a certain number of lots comes about, and whether, in fact, the lots crossed by alternative A in particular would still be a size to be developed.
Yeah, for alternative A, we because the roadway alternative affects two lots, we assumed that we were going to acquire both lots in their entirety, which was conservative in the context that an option we would like to pursue is to work with the property owner to see if we could replat that so they wouldn't lose as many lots. As Commissioner Parks said, it appears it could be 3 lots, but we'd like to work with the property owner to make certain something like that would not happen. I mean, our intent is by all means, is to try to minimize the impact, if we were to pursue with the preferred alternative, to minimize the impact to the property owners.
Okay. And if the lots were not replatted, can you tell us the size of the acreage and whether there would still be 40,000 square foot lots, the larger fragments of those lots? Did you look at that?
I'm unclear. Do you want the size of the remaining fragments of the lots that would be?
Yeah, I assume that if you purchased those lots, the municipality wouldn't hang on to that acreage. So I'm wondering if the homeowner were not willing to replat and you purchased those lots and if the muni purchased those lots and the muni replatted them, would the muni still have 2 saleable lots?
Likely not. I don't believe they would make the 1 acre minimum requirement. I think our preliminary calculations indicated they'd be short of that. We thought we could, again, replat, working with those other adjacent lots and make it so we can gain a lot back. But right now, we assumed the worst. We assumed that the municipality would own those lots in perpetuity.
Thank you very much for your additional comments. And Ms. Pease, I hope that this has answered your questions.
It has. It has.
All right.
Before we vote, I would speak to a couple points.
All right.
That's my question.
Thank you. Thank you. Do we have any other comments? We are in the committee of the whole. No other, I'm seeing and hearing no one else. Seeing no one and seeing no one in the queue. Is there a motion to go out of the committee of the whole, please? Thank you, Mr. Parks. Mr. Pruz, you've seconded. We are now out of the committee of the whole. May I have a motion on the floor, please? I'm sorry. We already have a motion on the floor. Mr. Parks, would you repeat your motion for the benefit of the commission members, please?
Motion to approve case number 2010-076 for Mountain Air Drive and Hillside Drive Extension, Alternative B, with the department's recommendation located on page 7 of the memorandum dated February 7th, 2011.
Okay. Thank you. And Mr. Pruz has seconded that motion, which is still on the table. All right. Since we have a difference of opinion, do we have any more findings or discussion on the main motion, please?
Yes.
Ms. Pease.
Yes. I am going to list off some of the concerns or some of the reasons that staff has recommended alternative A. And I guess the first...
So those would be the reasons that you would be objecting to this motion?
Yes.
All right. So please proceed.
We are a fiscally conservative community doing everything we can to conserve our use of public funds. And alternative A, or alternative B costs at the very least 10% more. In addition, it is about 50% longer. So over the lifetime, the maintenance costs will also be higher. In using public funds, we want to make sure that we get the maximum public benefit consistent with our adopted public plans. And in this case, our plans call for a collector road. Alternative A is, as the staff has outlined very clearly for us, by far the more appropriate collector road. It is a direct, unobstructed, and expedient route for emergency vehicles, as opposed to a circuitous route. The vehicular travel time is 1 minute as opposed to 2 minutes. The travel time BOP to EOP is 9 minutes as opposed to 15 minutes on alternative B. It's safer. Again, it's direct and unobstructed, where the alternative B has 2 90-degree turns and approximately 15 residential driveways. And again, we're spending public money on a collector, and the idea is connectivity and convenient connection out to Rabbit Creek Road in particular as an alternative to Golden View with all its overload and problems. We heard that there would be 4 parcels impacted, but we did hear a little bit of testimony from the consultant that they're not sure whether those parcels could be replatted and resold. In looking at them, the parcels are some of the bigger ones in that area, so I'm guessing that we're not taking 4 parcels off the tax rolls. It's probably no more than alternative B would. The water course crossings, 1 on alternative A instead of 2. The impact to wildlife corridor, minimal on alternative A, significant on alternative B. impacts to waters of the U.S., none on alternative A, fill impacts for alternative B. And then who are we serving? Well, the Community Council, Rabbit Creek, and the South Golden View Council support alternative A. We know that the affected property owner supports alternative B. So for all those reasons, but even for those who are not particularly troubled by the connectivity to Bear Valley or the possible wetlands along the Jamie Extension or the use of parkland, yeah. Okay, I finished the list. I was just summarizing. We're commissioned to be, or not commissioned. We sort of have, I think, direction from the community generally as representatives to be fiscally responsible. And finally, the initial concerns were that this road should not serve a particular developer, but in this case, I think we are serving the developer who owns the land along alternative B more than the highest public benefits. So for all those reasons, I'll be voting against it.
Thank you. Mr. Pruse.
I call for the question.
All right, thank you. All right, in the case of 2010-076, there is a motion on the table to approve alternative B that has been put forth by Commissioner Parks and seconded by Mr. Pruse. Since there's been debate, we will use our voting machines. A yes vote will approve alternative B. A no vote kills the motion and kills this case before the Planning and Zoning Commission. Please use your machine. That motion passes with a vote of 5. Thank you. All right, moving on to our regular agenda. All right, moving on to item number G for public hearings in case number 2011-069. The petitioner is AWWU. It is a conditional use for expansion and upgrade to the existing Girdwood wastewater treatment facility. Okay. The procedure by which the public may speak to the Commission at its meeting is, item number 1, after the staff presentation is completed on public hearings, the Chair will ask for public testimony on the issue. Persons who wish to testify will follow the time limits established in the Commission Rules of Procedure. Petitioners, including all of his representatives, will have 10 minutes. Part of this time may be reserved for rebuttal. Representatives of groups, community councils, PTAs, etc., will have 5 minutes. Individuals, 3 minutes. When your testimony is complete, you may be asked questions by the Commission. You may only testify once on any issue unless questioned by the Commission. An individual may have appeal rights relating to any action the Planning and Zoning Commission takes. Appeals must be filed with the clerk's office within 20 days after the Planning and Zoning Commission's final decision. Any individual may request written findings from the Commission decision within 7 days. May we have the petitioner's representative, please? Oh, I'm sorry. Staff report is first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As mentioned, this is a request for conditional use to allow expansion and upgrade to the existing wastewater utility substation in Girdwood. This utility substation is located within Lot 71 of the U.S. Survey 3042 in Girdwood. Now, Lot 71 does contain 172 acres, and it's owned by the Heritage Land Bank. This property is subject to 3 zoning districts: the Girdwood Open Space, GOS, the GI1 Ruane Road Industrial, and GIP, Girdwood Institution and Parks. Lot 71 has not been subdivided. There are no platted boundaries within or between the zoning districts. The substation is located within the GIP Institution and Park zoned portion of this lot. The facility was built in 1978 and is at or near capacity for the current population. The GI1 portion of the lot is developed with a solid waste transfer station that adjoins the west and south petition site boundary. The open space is undeveloped. Type A wetlands do impact the GOS or the open space portion of this tract, this Lot 1. But the petition site is not impacted by wetlands. Glacier Creek is located to the east of the petition area, and California Creek is located to the west. This conditional use, as mentioned, is to expand and upgrade the treatment method at the substation to meet the projected population of 6,000 year-round residents by the year 2035. In reviewing the request, the proposal does meet the goals and policies of the Girdwood Area Plan and the applicable zoning district. The plan did note 16 years ago that the state substation for wastewater treatment was at or near capacity at that time, and the population and subdivisions have increased within Girdwood, and the time is now becoming critical to upgrade and increase the capacity of the substation. The proposed expansion and upgrade generally meet the dimensional, the site, and design standards of AMC 2109, which were addressed on pages 7 and 8 of the packet. There is an exception. There are two buildings, the treatment and residual buildings, that do not meet some of the dimensional standards in terms of bulk, the maximum 120-foot length of the side of a building, and for required alteration of a wall longer than 40 feet. However, the Zoning Board of Examiners and Appeals did grant a variance in April of this year. The size of those structures are basically determined by the actual treatment process and the equipment that needs to be located within those structures. The site plan is providing 15 parking spaces. Development Services did review the proposal, the number of employees, and the bus trips made by school children from time to time during the school year, and determined that 15 parking spaces were required. And so they reduced the amount of required parking spaces. In reviewing the standards for conditional use, the upgrade to the AWW substation will not generate additional traffic, as the use of the land has existed since 1978, and the use will not be changing with the upgrade. The employment level will remain at 15 as it is currently, and the facility will not increase the demand on public services or facilities. There should be no noticeable increase in the impact on noise, air, water, or other forms of environmental pollution, other than maybe dust that is generated during the actual construction. The property is located in a floodplain. However, the project will place engineered fill to raise the elevation to 56 feet, which would place the building outside of a floodplain. The petition site is a high wind area, which the structural design has taken that into account. And the Corps of Engineers found that all of the development for the upgrade and expansion is in the uplands, and determined that a Corps permit is not required. The proposed development in the GIP district is compatible with the industrial use to the west and south of the petition site, and the heavily treed open space should buffer any adjacent to the northwest residential subdivisions that might be impacted by any increase to the wastewater substation. Therefore, the department does recommend approval of the requested conditional use, subject to 3 conditions that are found on page 11 and 12 of the packet. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. O'Brien, for those comments and testimony, not testimony, staff report. All right, now we're going to open the public hearing. Are there any questions from staff? Seeing and hearing none, we're now going to open the public hearing. May I have the petitioner's representative?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Yoshimura. Chris Beck is my name, and I'm a consultant working with Anchorage Water Wastewater Utility. And if I'm able, with this contraption we've set up, we will show you the brief PowerPoint. The overall system isn't working today, so we have this sort of NASA-approved alternative. I just briefly will run through a bit of addition to what you heard from the staff. The staff did a good job in summarizing really what's going on with the project. Most of you know the location. It's just off Ruane Road. As you drive into the valley, it's there on your right. The reason for doing this, why upgrade the facility, essentially is reported. The current facility exceeds discharge limits. It lacks capacity to meet anticipated demand. It's an older facility. It's really reached the end of its useful life. The anecdote that most makes that clear to my mind is that they have in the area that's intended to be office, they have equipment and machinery. They're basically using every square foot of the existing structure. In many ways, it wasn't designed for. And there's some regulatory challenges the new facility is better positioned to meet. So for all those reasons, to add capacity, to upgrade the quality of treatment, there's a need for a new facility. Just to give some quantification of those numbers is that the average flow is about 0.5 million gallons per day, a little more than that, and the capacity is right around 0.6, but there's spikes during the year that regularly occur that push beyond that capacity. As mentioned, it's really compatible with surrounding uses. This is an excerpt, as you see on the right, from the Girdwood Area Plan. The reason this has that Parks and Institutional label is it corresponds with the blue area there that was set aside for this purpose at a time back when the plan was prepared. It's essentially an industrial context. What's specifically being proposed is this two-part expansion. The proposal in front of you is for both phases, but the near-term piece is for, as this shows, the influent pump building, operations building, and electrical building. That'll be followed by the two larger buildings that are really the heart of the project, the treatment and the residuals buildings. And we've spent a fair amount of time working with the community, trying to make sure that we've understood their concerns and we're able to respond to them. Back in 2009, when this was clustered as a single-phased project, we had a number of hearings, resulted ultimately in the Board of Supervisors giving a resolution of, they do non-objection, but effectively a resolution of support. When the project was split into two phases, we came back this winter and spring, went through the Trails Committee, Land Use Committee, and back to the Board of Supervisors and had support statements from each of those parties. So with that, I'm going to switch, using the remainder of our, whatever the number of minutes are, and let Peter talk a little bit about the specific ways the project has been modified to respond to some of the questions that came from the public.
My name is Peter Moss. I'm with the design team, working with AWU for the project. And the facility that you see here is the treatment facility, part of the future phase 2 portion of the work. Shows the equipment. You can see the tight compaction of the equipment. The buildings, when we completed the designs after discussions with the community, the feedback that we heard was make these buildings as small as possible and make them comply with the intent of the alpine feel of the community that's listed in AMC 2109. The treatment building, you see the rendering of it there. It shows the broken roof line where although we were not able to effectively consolidate the footprint and comply with the offsets that we requested the variance from back in April, we went ahead and were able to figure out a way to, within the process of the facility and the operational needs of the facility, figure out how to incorporate some sort of clear stories into the larger building, so that even from the hillside view and the surrounding community, provides some breakup of the structure. You can see the rendering view. This is the actual blown up view of the facility shown back in the just to the southwest of that green or the brown spot shown in the if you can, yeah, right in there. So it's quite a ways from the skier's view on the mountainside, and we've really tried to create somewhat of an alpine village and break this building up into a series of buildings rather than one very large building or a couple of buildings. So there's the operations building, complies with 2109's building standards. In fact, all of Phase 1 buildings comply with the 2109 phase standards. Only the future residual and treatment building apply or were affected by the variance on the offsets and the building size, simply because those two buildings, even with the current technology and the way those have to relate together, there was no way to compress those close enough together to meet the building setbacks. So the variance was given for that. And then here's the electrical building that will supply power for the site by the completion of Phase 1, and then we'll tie in the power for the new two buildings, future treatment and future residual in Phase 2.
And we are thinking of making it into a bed and breakfast if it turns out there's not a need for wastewater treatment in the future.
All right. Thank you very much. Are there comments from the public? If there are, would you please come forward? No one here with the public wishes to testify regarding this matter. Do we have questions for the petitioner's representative from the commission? Mr. Pruse.
Thanks. Just a couple quick questions. With the system right now, you said it's designed for 500,000 gallons a day, and you have some peak at 600, so that's approximately 20% extra. What do you presently do when you hit that?
Tom Winkler is with AWU, and he would probably give you the better answer than would I.
Hi, through the chair, I'm Tom Winkler, the project manager for AWW. Presently, we're able to accommodate the flow. We have a storage lagoon that can store some of the flow short periods of time. We're getting by, I guess you would say. It was originally addressed as a permit condition when we reached 85% of the permitted flow. Required us to develop a facility plan, which was done in 2006. This is following that work to be ready or just in time for an upgrade.
Okay. And then on your renderings of the buildings, I noticed that there was no discharge stacks on any of the buildings. So is there no exhaust from any of the buildings? And if so, what's the elevations and what do they look like?
Discharge, you talking about fluid?
No, just exhaust.
The mechanical systems, the actual mechanical systems and the process equipment, the designs for those have not been finalized. The schematics that you see in the plans are very much schematic based on industry standards for the MBR membrane bioreactor systems for filtration of the effluent. And so I would say that that will come in the process of the design. But as far as stacks,
well, something's got to be exhausted somewhere. It's a very nice design. I'll say. I'd assume you have to exhaust something. Is it 50 feet, 5 feet? Does it look like a fireplace? What fire? I mean, that will, is it going to be a plume like we see it? Maybe a water treatment plant? What is it? What are you going to have?
We unfortunately have nobody here from the process engineering side to address that question specifically. I can tell you, having worked on these projects in the past, that there is no significant discharge for this type of equipment. as far as air quality.
I'm not worried about the quality. I'm just working with if you're going to have a stack at an elevation and a size that goes along with the buildings.
Well, we can't clarify that precisely because, as Peter said, we haven't designed that point yet, but this facility is approximately less than half the size of the Eagle River wastewater treatment plant, a similar process but more advanced. And yes, there is, the building has to be heated, so there's an exhaust air and HVAC to meet code requirements, so there is some sort of exhaust stacks, which the design team will attempt to minimize. I can't tell you what that is right now.
Okay, so there won't be any large discharge of air or exhaust from the treatment facility itself?
No, there is no incineration process or anything like that.
Okay.
It's just air changes as required by code, mechanical code to meet that.
Any smells or anything like that that's going to be exhausted?
Well, it is a wastewater treatment plant, and yes, there will be some odors if you're right there.
One exhaust, two exhausts? I mean, I'm just trying to get a feel for, again, it could mitigate that whole deal if you have one big stack sticking up 50 feet above the building to get high enough.
I don't believe that'd be that high. They're pretty minimal. I can't tell you the exact height at Eagle River. I would say there's probably going to be less odors because it's it's the highest technology available right now for treatment processes. But we don't have any more specifics than that. We're at 10% design on that process. What we're doing here is we're building phases. Our first phase is a lift station plus operations building and electrical building. Second phase is the main treatment works.
So your best guess would be how high of what, like if you use Eagle River as an example, what would that be elevation-wise?
As the person least qualified to answer your question, I'm going to risk an answer. If I've understood correctly, I think they're saying that the processing of waste doesn't require a stack. So the stacks that would be required would be typical for buildings of this size, be they a school, a restaurant, or whatever. So that scale, 7-8 feet above a roof line, something of that sort, is my understanding of what they're saying. So,
thank you.
And I guess the other thing, as far as smells, this technology is certainly better than what they have now. So I think all of this is a step forward from the existing situation.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. On page 5 of the packet, it notes that the system experiences severe inflow and infiltration resulting primarily from the lack of a storm sewer system. Is this site going to accommodate stormwater, or how is that cause addressed through this site?
I can practice.
The inflow and infiltration that's referred to in there is from the wastewater collection system throughout the town of Girdwood. That's where it's coming in. It's a leaky sewer system, and the utility is investing money to plug those leaks as best can happen. And yes, the site is being designed to accommodate the stormwater for the site for municipal code.
I guess that partly answers my question. Is there a stormwater collection system that's being improved throughout the community? Will there be a new stormwater flow coming to this site? And is that part of the layout?
Girdwood, the stormwater system is essentially a collection of ditches, which is I'm not here to represent the stormwater because I'm with AWW, but it's a very good system for what's intended there. Our project has nothing to do with the stormwater system there.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Wilson?
Thank you. I wondered about the
technology, use of technology, you've discussed a couple of things. Can you tell us a little bit about ultraviolet disinfection and how that relates to the useful life of the facility and how many years ahead you'll be able to serve with this facility?
Many wastewater treatment plants across the country have switched from mostly chlorine type of disinfection to ultraviolet. And the advantage there is there's no chemicals used, no impacts to the creek. You don't have to add another chemical to dechlorinate. 2 years ago, we converted the Eagle River wastewater treatment facility to ultraviolet disinfection, and it has the same typical life of approximately 20 years, maybe more, as other process equipment.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments from the commission? Any questions whatsoever? And seeing and hearing none? The petitioner's representatives has 5 minutes and 10 seconds left for rebuttal. Do you have anything else you'd like to contribute?
I believe not. I give Peter a chance to say, and I appreciate the chance to share the project. Maybe the final general statement is simply that it has gone through the project a lot of review, and I think that the community of Girdwood, as many of you know, is not one that lets projects move forward without a thorough vetting of all the options. And I think it's fair to say that this one came through that through a series of improvements with a project that the community, in a community that's very sensitive about environmental issues and cost issues, as a project that they see as important. I know it's your decision, not theirs, but I think it's worth emphasizing that they're a good stand-in for some of the concerns you may have, and they, I think, in the end, were quite satisfied with all the different dimensions and the way the project evolved.
Okay, thank you very much. Seeing and hearing no one else, the public hearing is closed. I need a motion on the floor. Ms. Pease.
In the matter of case 2011-069, I move for approval of this conditional use with the department's recommendations on pages 11 and 12 of our staff packet.
We have a second from Mr. Frederick. Would you, either one of you, like to speak to your motion, please?
Yes. I think this project can be summed up with a really positive word, which is artful. I think the location has been carefully situated to avoid wetlands and to avoid or to minimize any impacts from the floodplain through the placement of fill. It's next to the current landfill, so it's already an area with some impact. It's sort of an industrial, institutional nature. And then the design itself is quite amazing. I only wish that this consultant had been involved in the Chugach Electric substation. But I hope that this goes up for some kind of recognition, because I think any community would be pleased to have such an artful wastewater treatment facility. In general, the expansion is beneficial to the Girdwood community and really to the whole Turnagain Arm and regional community because of the improvement in wastewater treatment with the new advanced technology of Phase 2. And as the consultant noted, Girdwood residents and supervisors, Land Use Committee, Trails Committee tend to look at these projects very closely, and the fact that they're supportive of this project gives me reassurance that the codes are met. And in addition, as noted in our packet, the project is consistent with the dimensional standards of AMC Title IX, site development standards, and the commercial public institutional building design standards, with the exception of the scale, which has been mitigated with the great design. So I'll be enthusiastically supporting this.
Ms. Dean, were you in the queue? No. All right. Is there any objection to the motion on the floor? Seeing and hearing none, that is approved. Let's move on to case 2011-070. The petitioner is the Lighthouse Christian Fellowship Church. It's a zoning conditional use for off-street parking. May we have the staff report first? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. As mentioned, this is an off-street parking request for conditional use. It is, the petition site consists of 3 lots that have a combined acreage of 1.65 acres, and the petition site is located on the north side of West Diamond and the east side of Vern Place. It is West Diamond at this location is a Class 3 major arterial on the official streets and highways plan. It is a state-owned and maintained right-of-way. The existing right-of-way width meets the OS&HP standards. Vern Place is not classified on the official streets and highways, and it functions as a local roadway, and it has been dedicated to a 60-foot width. Vern Place is owned and maintained by the municipality. The off-street parking is intended to serve the proposed church to be constructed on Lot 4A, which abuts the east property boundary of the 3 lots that make up the off-street parking site. Some of the parking, as well as the accessible parking, will be located on the same lot as the church, which is zoned B3, and the church is permitted outright in the B3 zoning district. However, the current petition site is zoned R5, and off-street parking is permitted by conditional use. And that is why the off-street parking is before the commission tonight. The off-street parking generally conforms to the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan. The petition site is located in close proximity to a neighborhood commercial center. It does avoid incompatible uses, as the surrounding development to the west and the south and the church use to the east are basically developed with commercial institutional uses. And so it does meet the policies of the comprehensive plan. In terms of the standards for an off-street parking, the use is permitted as mentioned by conditional use. The lot area and width meets the dimensional requirements. The minimum site for an off-street parking area is 10,000 square foot. This is 1.65 acres. It doesn't involve any structures. It's parking only. The yard requirements in the R5 district are a 20-foot front yard, 5-foot side yard, and a 10-foot rear yard, and those will be met because there will be no structures within the required yard setbacks. Minimum height of structures is unrestricted in the R5 district. However, that doesn't pertain to this current petition site. There is no structures that are proposed. In terms of the landscaping, all the areas that are not devoted to building structures, etc., shall be planted with visual enhancement landscaping. It does have to provide visual enhancement landscaping for the parking lot, and there also is a 10-foot buffer landscaping that is required along the north property boundary, which abuts a residential district. There are some amendments that need to be made to the landscape plan. They were summarized on page 10 of the packet. The parking lot is proposed to be planted with all deciduous plant material, and there should be some evergreens so that in wintertime there is some visual buffering within the parking lot itself. One of the shrubs that is proposed does not meet the 18-inch height standard and needs to be substituted with another planting that does. In terms of the site plan itself, staff took a look at the parking spaces, and there appear to be, within the boundaries of these 3 lots, there are 136 parking spaces, 121 of which were 9 feet by 20 feet as scaled. However, 25 spaces scaled to only 7.5 by 20 feet. So the petition does need to verify that all the parking spaces that are located on this site do meet the 9-foot by 20-foot dimension, and to revise the parking lot layout if it's required in order to meet the standard. The 5 accessible parking spaces that are required for the church use will be located on Lot 4A, the site of the church, not within the area for the conditional use. There is no public storm drain that serves this area, and so drainage would flow northwesterly to the drainage ditch, but private development has mentioned that any off-site drainage will have to be treated prior to exiting the property. And in terms of the impact on the items, pedestrian vehicular circulation and safety, as mentioned, the state of Alaska owns and maintains West Diamond Boulevard. There will be one access to the church site from West Diamond, but my understanding it will be allowed only right in, right out only. Access to the off-street parking area, there will be 2 driveways, but it will be from Vern Place and not from West Diamond. And the site plan does not indicate any cut-through traffic from the church site over to the off-street parking. The intent is that Vern Place be used as the primary access to the off-street parking area. There is one access, and it appears to be for loading only, as access to the refuse container area, which will be located within the off-street parking area. Any access to West Diamond Boulevard will require a permit approved by the State of Alaska Right-of-Way Office and DOT. As of this writing, an application had not been submitted to the DOT Right-of-Way Office. Comments from the municipal planning, transportation planning, have alluded to a possibility for a TIA, but they did traffic impact analysis, but they did say that would be resolved through the building permit process and not with this conditional use process. And for access onto Vern Place, driveway permits will be required from the municipality of Anchorage, which owns that right of way. And basically, the one concern for having access on Vern Place is to reduce the amount of queuing on West Diamond Boulevard given the proximity to the Minnesota Drive off-ramp. Basically, the impact on noise, air, water, or other forms of environmental pollution should not be greater than that which is permitted in the zoning district, and the church is permitted outright, of course, in the B3. Private development did mention that there will be a drainage plan, drainage analysis that is required as part of the building permit, whereby the drainage off-site, which ultimately flows into Campbell Creek, will have to be treated before it leaves the petition site, and that too will be handled during the building permit process. The department does recommend approval of the conditional use for off-street parking on lots 16, 17, and 18, subject to the conditions on pages 14, 15, ending on page 16. And condition 5 does address amendments that are needed for the landscape plan to meet current standards. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. O'Brien, for that staff presentation. We do have some questions from commissioners. Mr. Pruse first.
Thank you. You mentioned the drainage plan. I don't see any temporary or permanent snow removal, snow storage on the overall site plan, and I was wondering about lighting, if there would be any lighting requirements for this.
Madam Chair, Mr. Pruse, the lighting will have to be in accordance with AMC 2147. The packet did address snow storage, 2147 if I said 87. 87 is flats. Snow storage was addressed in the staff packet. There was nothing on the site plan that it did address snow storage. If all of the parking on this site is required parking, then snow may not be stored within required parking, and snow may not be stored within the required landscaping. So there will have to be either snow storage on Lot 4A, which is not part of this conditional use, which is the main church site, or it would have to be removed, but certainly the drainage analysis will have to address any snow melt from the site as a whole, including the 3 parking lots, as well as the church lot.
So when you say the drainage plan eventually will show that the runoff, whether it's snow or rain, will have to be treated, I basically see 2 culverts in the ditch along the access to the parking lot. Are we talking a oil grease separator type system? Or what are you envisioning when you say treated? I guess maybe as an option that the petitioner would have.
The reference to, on page 11, there was an advisory comment from private development. They do advise the petitioner of the requirement to coordinate submission of a drainage analysis and calculations to private development under a building and/or land use permitting. Final plans with appropriate details will be required prior to approval of the building or land use permit. So whether it's a settling pond or if it's an oil and grease separator or any other methodology, the methodology will be determined based on the drainage analysis, which has not yet been submitted to private development for review and approval.
Is it typical, being new on this commission, that happens after we don't see it again? We don't see what's ultimately done with drainage?
Madam Chair, Mr. Pruse, that's correct. The building permit is the trigger which will, before the building permit can be approved, the drainage analysis has to be performed, and the proper methodology for handling that drainage before it goes off-site, before it enters the culverts, will have to be treated. The methodology for treatment will be determined by the drainage analysis.
So just for my clarification, if something happens on Lot 4, would we see that again?
Madam Chair, Mr. Pruse, no, because the church is permitted outright. It's Zone B3, and it's permitted outright. It is not subject to a site plan review. It does not require any review. It's permitted outright.
Okay, so that's just clarification. I didn't understand that. Thank you.
Mr. Wilson and then Ms. Pease.
Mr. Bryan, I'm interested in egress from the parking lot to West Diamond Boulevard and then going east on West Diamond Boulevard. obviously you can't do it coming straight down Vern Place, so the people would need to go west 90th Avenue and then join Angela Place to get to the stoplight and then turn left. And is that road at West 90th Avenue adequate for that, or will the Muni have to upgrade the road?
From the church proper, the church site proper, from Lot 4A will be right in, right out only. From Vern Place, I don't think there's any prohibition on a left turn going east.
I thought that was a median in the middle there. In fact, I drive that a lot, so it's a median there. The only way to cross is at the light.
I see.
Angela Place going south, turn left at the light to go east on Diamond Boulevard.
Yes.
And my question really relates to, if this attracts a lot of traffic on a Sunday morning, is West 90th going to need some improvements? And I guess this is a perennial problem that these projects face, but just something for heads up, I guess. It should be maybe a note somewhere in the private development notes.
Private development did say that there might be more improvements on Vern Place, but they did not mention anything about 90th.
But otherwise, you're going to, if 90th isn't adequate, and I think it's not adequate, but I could be wrong. But if it is not, you'll find people going through that parking lot, and it becomes a right-of-way, which is unsafe.
Madam Chair, Mr. Wilson, I didn't understand going through the parking lot.
If you go from Vern Place and to get to the stoplight, you have two ways to get there, West 90th or through the parking lot where the Thai restaurant is and so forth. Or that Hot Sticks or whatever that Sticks restaurant is. That's a pretty hot place. So.
Madam Chair, Mr. Wilson, I do understand, we see that at intersections when they go through gas stations and stuff.
I don't know, how many cars will be parked maximum in that space? I didn't catch that.
136, I believe.
Okay. Maybe it's not a big issue.
136. I don't have an answer on improvements to 90th. I did know that private development was talking about improvements to Vern to handle the drainage, but and I don't know if there will be a TIA required. The comments said that would be determined during the building permit process as well. Certainly comments from the Alaska Department of Transportation did not say anything about a traffic impact analysis to be required. In any event, it would have to be a joint municipal and state TIA. Part of the requirement that would come out of the TIA could be a requirement to improve 90th in order to provide an adequate circulation plan for this proposed development. But that decision hasn't been made yet, so I don't have a definitive answer to your question whether or not improvements will actually be required for West 90th.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Pease.
Yeah, first just a quick technical question. and then a broader one. Did you say that the minimum stall width needs to be 9 feet? Or 8 feet?
Through the chair, Ms. Pease, they are proposing to have 9 foot by 20. The application said that they were all going to be 9 by 20. The stall width is 8 feet by 20.
Okay. And just technical, it's repeated under number 4 and then under 5J. But that's minor. The question I have, I guess, is, are we seeing this prematurely? And for a couple of reasons. Although, Ms. O'Brien, you said that we don't usually see the drainage, or it's not necessary for us to see the drainage. In this case, it's a conditional use, and we are charged under AMC D3 to ensure that, to take a look that the water pollution is not greater than that anticipated from permitted development. And this will be mostly a hard surface lot. So I'm not sure that we're able to make that determination. The TIA hasn't been required for this, but may be required for the church, and yet this is the major parking area for the church. So I'm wondering whether this can create an end run of some kind around the need for a TIA. And then we've just learned that this doesn't solve the right in, right out only traffic problem because there's a median at Diamond. Finally, we don't know how much parking is needed for this church because there's no design yet for the size of the church. And we have policies to not over-construct parking, so I'm not sure how we can possibly do that, know whether this parking is the needed amount. And finally, wondered if you could speak a little bit more to why there wouldn't be a larger permanent negative impact on traffic circulation than what you would expect on an R5. This is the parking lot's in the R5. So you'd expect how many houses, and would that amount to 136 cars and that number of vehicle trips within peak periods?
Through the chair, Ms. Pease, clearly there would be fewer residential units and fewer vehicles serving those residential units in the R5 district. This is an accessory use. I understand it's permitted by conditional use. So it's deemed to be a viable use within the R5 by virtue of being a permitted conditional use.
If we find that the impacts are not significantly greater than what an R5 would provide, and given that now the talk about cut-through traffic, the need to upgrade the additional road, and then just the peak nature of the traffic, I'm unsure how we can say that's. We have to find that there's no greater significant permanent impact than the R5, and I'm not sure we can do that.
Through the chair, Ms. Pease, what I was trying to say is that it's a permitted conditional use in the R5, and I believe that looking at the surrounding area, which is commercial to the west, solid commercial to the south, that it is not incompatible with the uses that exist in the immediate surrounding area, which are predominantly commercial and a proposed institutional use. So I understand that the conditional use for off-street parking would be required in order to even get a building permit. And they have to demonstrate that they have the number of required parking spaces to serve the church use. So I believe that is why it is here before the commission tonight. As to the number of required parking spaces for the church, I would have to defer to the petitioner or their representative because I don't have any information on the seating or the square footage of the meeting areas, and there has to be have been some determination made that they need these numbers of parking spaces to serve the church use.
Thank you.
Could we get a brief at ease recess?
Yes. Sir. All right. We are reconvened in the matter of case 2011-070. We have heard the staff presentation, and we have had several questions from staff. I see Mr. Pruz is in the queue. Mr. Pruz, you are? Are you clear? Okay. So, thank you. Ms. Pease.
Madam Chair, in the case of 2011-070, I'm going to move to postpone this case until provision of the of certain information that I feel is missing.
We have a second from Mr. Parks in regards to that matter. Ms. Pease, would you like to speak to your motion for postponement?
Yes, I don't feel we have the adequate information to approve a conditional use in the R5, nor does the public have adequate information. The following information seems to be missing and needed. Information on the required number of spaces, which would to determine what the required number of spaces is and make sure that we're not under or over permitting parking. In other words, creating a deficit or an excess. We would need a little more information on the concept design of the church and the sort of the scale of the parking needs. I think we also need further information on the right turn only configuration. We've had some concerns about cars needing to go east and having to go down 90th or over to, I think it's Angela, and cut through traffic on the parking lot or upgrades of 90th. So we need to figure out how the right-only configuration is going to be handled. I'm also concerned that we may need a TIA. I'm worried that if we approve this parking, then the church itself might not need a TIA because they've already got approved parking. In order to approve this as a conditional use, in the past, we have looked at drainage as part of our approval. That may not be necessary for a permitted use, but for a conditional use, we've got to see that. And I think we need to know more about the connectivity between the parking site and the church and what parking is going to be on that adjoining lot. We have to look at the required number of handicap spaces, for example. We may need to look at the sort of the length of the drive, cut through traffic and that sort of thing. So we're missing a lot of information. The public should see this information too, particularly now that we're concerned that the neighbors on 90th and at that stoplight might be affected. So for those reasons, I'm moving to postpone.
Thank you. Mr. Parks, do you have anything else that you would like to add as the second?
No, I agree.
Okay. Is there any objection to the motion for postponement? Seeing and hearing none, this case is postponed. Ms. O'Brien.
Madam Chair, so it's postponed, but not to a date specific. It should be rescheduled when the required or the requested information is submitted and reviewed. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Moving on to case 2011-073, the petitioner is Eklutna Inc., site plan review for PLI Public Lands in Institutional District. May we have the staff presentation, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Karen Iverson, and I'm a new staffer, new planner with the Planning Division. This is my first report to the Commission, so I thought I'd introduce myself. I also want to clarify that 2 additional items were laid on the table due to a collating error. The packet that you received that was put together by the applicant, the color packet, which I believe most of you reviewed, is fine and it does not have the error. The error was in the packet that was made for public dissemination, and a few of the pages were missing. So the 2 items have those missing pages. they allow me one mistake on my first.
Thank you. Ms. Iverson, please continue.
So this request is for a public hearing site plan review of a master development plan in accordance with AO 94-233 S1AA. On June 20th, 2011, 141 public hearing notices were mailed, and at this time, no public comments were received. The subject property is generally located between the Old and New Glen highways and north of North Eagle River Access Road. The Assembly approved a rezoning request for the subject property from PLI to B3SL on February 14th, 1995. As required in the ordinance, this request is for a public hearing site plan review of a master development plan. Approval of this master development plan will effectuate the rezoning of the property to B3SL. The rezoning included, the original rezoning in the Assembly ordinance included 2 PLI tracts owned by Eklutna Inc. directly north and south of North Eagle River Access Road, and 7 R2A lots located directly south of the tracts owned by Eklutna Inc. The ordinance has the following special limitation. A minimum 30-foot landscape buffer shall be provided where adjacent to residential property. The buffer shall meet AMC 21-45-125C3 screening standards and additionally provide a 6-foot tall site obscuring fence to be located at lot lines adjacent to residential property. This special limitation is met. This SL applies to the abutting residential property to the north. The master development plan includes a 30-foot landscape buffer meeting screening standards and a 6-foot site obscuring fence at the lot line adjacent to residential property to the north. This ordinance has 2 effective clauses. These clauses applied to both PLI tracts owned by Eklutna. However, after reviewing the record, the Planning Division determined that the references to a dedicated access road applied only to the southern tract where physical and legal access was a concern. The first effective clause states, a public hearing site plan review of a master development plan per AMC 2115-030 shall be approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission. The site plan review process will include a dedicated access for use by other property owners. This master development plan review will satisfy this special limitation for the subject property. There are no clear requirements in AMC regarding the content of a master development plan. Therefore, the Planning Division applied the requirements of a site plan review per 2115-030, but through a conceptual master development plan level lens. This standard was applied to the master development plan review under this ordinance for the property to the south. And included in the packet on page 271 is the one-page master site plan that was reviewed for the property to the south. And you can see the level of detail that was in that one. The second effective clause states, let me go back to the first effective clause. It was determined by staff that the requirement in the effective clause to include a dedicated access road does not apply to the subject property, but rather did apply to the southern tract. That's not part of this review. The second effective clause stated, a traffic impact analysis shall be submitted to the Department of Community Planning and Development and approved by municipal traffic engineer, DCPD Transportation Planning, and the Alaska Department of Transportation Public Facilities. This clause, effective clause, is partially satisfied. A TIA for 120,000 square feet of general office space has been submitted and approved by AKDOT, the Planning Division, and the municipal traffic engineer. The proposed site will access the Old Glen Highway via the existing shared access driveway to the north and a second proposed right-in, right-out driveway. Based on the analysis conducted for the TIA, all intersections within the study area remain at a level of service C or better, and no further mitigation is required. However, the uses described in the master development plan are not limited to general office. The uses described also included commercial, retail, and eateries. Many of these uses are higher trip-generating uses. And additionally, the TIA assumed a 2012 construction horizon. To resolve this, the Planning Division recommends condition of approval number 6, which would require a review of the TIA during permitting to ensure that the ultimate trip generation calculations and construction horizon are in accordance with the approved TIA. The requirement in the SL to demonstrate that the surrounding properties to the southern and west have adequate legal and physical access, again, do not apply to this subject property, but do apply to the southern tract. Just to highlight some of the important features of the submitted master plan, the master development plan allows for 3 buildings totaling up to 120,000 square feet of general business development, which may include office, commercial, retail, and eateries. The 3 master development plan options were submitted. Options 1 and 2 propose a terraced site to accommodate the sloping topography to the northwest. The third option is a complete fill option that would level the topography. The site can only accommodate 89,400 square feet of general office development with surface parking. However, the development of a parking garage, the maximum 120,000 square feet of building development could be attained. A parking garage shall only be developed in a terrace fill situation and would be limited to a below-grade level of a building. The building height will be limited to 45 feet, not to exceed 3 stories in height above the upper terrace level for that structure. The site was going to probably be developed in phases. At the time of permitting, development will be limited to one of the 3 approved options. The Planning Division recommends condition of approval 8, which will require final approval of the site plan by the Planning Division to ensure conformance with the master development plan. Regarding landscaping, the master plan proposes highway screening landscaping along the Glen Highway, arterial landscaping along North Eagle River Access Road and Old Glen Highway, and a 30-foot buffer landscaping along the northern property line adjacent to residential uses. The Planning Division recommends condition of approval 4, which requires final approval of screening provisions for major highways per AMC 2145-130 from the Urban Design Commission prior to site clearance. Regarding pedestrian circulation, pedestrian pathways will be provided throughout the site. There will be 2 connections to the existing pedestrian path along Old Glen Highway. The master development plan currently does not include a pedestrian connection to the pedestrian path along the Glen Highway. The area near the bike path is steep and may be difficult to provide a route. Condition of approval 7 reflects this outstanding issue and requires that the petitioner resolve the need and feasibility to provide one paved pedestrian connection from the site to the Glen Highway pedestrian pathway prior to issuance of permits. The department recommends approval of the master development plan for Eklutna Plaza, subject to the 8 conditions listed on pages 11 through 13 of the staff report. Thank you.
Are there questions by the commissioners for staff? Okay. Mr. Pruse.
Are there any public comments in the pack? I didn't see any public comments in the packet. Did I miss them?
Through the chair, I did not receive any public comments.
Okay, thank you. With no other questions from staff, we will go ahead and open the public hearing. Persons who wish to testify will follow the time limits established in the Commission Rules of Procedures. A, petitioners, including his/her representatives, 10 minutes. Part of this time may be reserved for rebuttal. Representatives of groups, community councils, PTAs, 5 minutes. Individuals, 3 minutes. When your testimony is complete, you may be asked questions by the Commission. You may only testify once on any issue unless questioned by the Commission. An individual may have appeal rights relating to any action the Planning and Zoning Commission takes. Appeals must be filed with the clerk's office within 20 days after the Planning and Zoning Commission's final decision. Any individual may request written findings from any commission decision within 7 days. Within that, we'll open the public hearing and hear from the petitioner's representatives.
Yes, good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. My name is Tim Potter with Dowell HKM, representing Eklutna Inc. tonight. And two members of the Eklutna Inc. Are here tonight to answer any specific questions. And Michelle Ritter with Dowell HKM will also be assisting tonight in discussion of the specific details about the 3 alternative design plans. I think I'll try and be real short tonight. I want to first retain 1 minute for rebuttal. But I thought I could maybe helpfully go back and look at some of the history of this project site. The actual site, and if you go to your staff packet to page 65, I believe it is Exhibit A, and that's the exhibit to the actual ordinance that was approved in 1994 by the Assembly. And it's pretty important to look at this as 2 or 3 pieces of property almost independent of each other and when examining the ordinance. So from a historical standpoint, the piece of property that are tract A and B, the larger parcel north of the Eagle River Access Road and the larger triangular piece south of the Eagle River Access, those are the parcels owned by Eklutna Inc. The rest of the properties south of that line were actually properties owned by a variety of independent owners and with a variety of uses. The one closest to the Glen Highway is where CC Skidoo is. When you go to the east a little bit, there was a industrial operator that had construction equipment and did street and road snow plowing and maintenance and construction activity. And it's important for you to remember that one because that's where a lot of the discussion came into effect as part of the ordinance. So if you look at the piece to the north of North Eagle River Access and the piece south and the other parcels, Snowmobile Lane, which was the dedicated access, was put in, and that was to accommodate traffic on the southern portion. So when the staff talks about the north half and the south half, she's really indicating everything south of the Eagle River Access Road, North Eagle River Access. Iris Lane, which is a north-south road there, on the southern half of the property that was in the rezone, was a major contention because the construction equipment was exiting and entering through Iris through the residential neighborhood, and that was required to be gated off. So as you look through the ordinance itself, there's really 2 effective clauses that impact the northern half, and that will be reflected in a couple of modifications to the conditions I'm going to ask for in a few minutes. They're really that there is a master development plan approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission, where we're here tonight to try and get, and the second is to have a traffic impact analysis done and approved by a DOT. The TIA has been performed under the direction of DOT and the city traffic engineer. It's been reviewed and approved and accepted by DOT, the city traffic engineer, and the planning department. That does tie down where the access points are, and it's important to recall that North Eagle River Access is part of the highway system, and it is controlled access from the new to the old Glen. The new Glen Highway is controlled access, and there's no access there either. So access to this property has to come from the old Glen Highway or the property to the north. So that's why the access is relatively limited to this piece of property. I think with that, we've attempted to lay out a significant amount of information. I hope it wasn't too much. That shows that we really have studied the property. And I'll have Michelle come up now and talk about the 3 variations of implementation to the master plan. And then I'd like to conclude when she's done with 2 conditions of approval that we'd like to modify.
Good evening. I'm Michelle Ritter with Dow HKM. As Mr. Potter and Ms. Iverson mentioned, there are 3 site plan layouts. They are different various grading plans. 2 are partial fills, and they're terraced options. Option 1, it terraces to the west, so it's got a little bit higher to the east and drops down, so you'll have a higher parking lot with a lower one setting to the west. That'll be one building development, and then the building development to the northeast. The option 2 terraces to the north, so the building will sit a little bit higher to the south and then kind of lower in to the north. And again, with that northwest property, northeast. No, northwest. And the third option is a full fill. All 3 of these designs are limited by surface parking. With the current grading plan, the maximum square footage we can get is 89,400 square feet. As Mr. Potter mentioned, with the development of a below-grade parking garage, we could get closer to that 120,000 square feet that was reflected in the TIA. The uses in all developments would be the same. It would include primarily general office with maybe some commercial, which would be more specialized retail or a local eatery on a smaller scale commercial. The maximum height on all the layouts would be limited to 45 feet or 3 stories. They would all provide the 30-foot screening along the Glen Highway, a 30-foot buffer to the north against the residential property, and 8-foot arterial landscaping to the east along the Old Glen, and to the south along North Eagle River access. Pedestrian pathways will be throughout all the site plans, with 2 pedestrian connections from the existing pathway along the Old Glen to the site. As well, there'll be pedestrian connections from the main building to the adjacent parking lots, as well as pathways will connect all the parking lots on site. A wetlands delineation has been prepared and accepted by the Corps of Engineers. These wetlands will be undisturbed except for a storm culvert that will go underneath the driveway. The owner will work with the Corps to develop that culvert. RIM Architects has prepared some conceptual architectural renderings and footprints which reflect the style of the architecture that's intended for the site, and you can see that it is in harmony with the built and natural environment. And with that, I will turn it back over to Mr. Potter.
Because of the poorly written ordinance, I'd like to go back and review 2 conditions of approval, one that exists and one that I'd like to add. And if you can go to page 12 in your packet, and condition number 6, on the traffic impact analysis issue. We've discussed this with the staff, and I believe that if you ask them, they'll indicate that the municipal traffic engineer and the planning department are accepting our suggested language. The item is that as you read the first sentence, it gets to shall. In the third sentence and the last sentence, there are also shalls. We're requesting that the first shall remain as shall and the other 2 shalls be changed to may. And that is so that as the traffic engineer reviews in our site plans that come in, for each facility, that if we are clearly within the framework and not creating a traffic issue, it's relatively simple for them to say, we don't believe that there's going to be an impact, or to run some short numbers without doing a full traffic impact analysis. Having the words may allows the municipal traffic engineer to use their judgment and be able to say, we don't believe it's going to be necessary to do a full-blown TIA, do a minimalized one that just looks at this and this, and then we're fine to go. So it prevents going through a big drawn-out process that takes a lot of time of ours and a lot of time of theirs. Lastly, I would just like to add on number 9, that would be an added condition, that the fence line on the north property line, we believe that the ordinance is being misinterpreted, and we've been through a pre-app meeting, a post-app meeting, and working on this for a long time, and up until recently, we were going along lovingly, believing that there needed to be a 6-foot-high screening fence on the north property line, even though it didn't seem to make any sense to us. We would be leaving the 30-foot buffer, but we believe that that part of the actual assembly ordinance was specifically related to the property, the accumulated lots next to the residential on the south property, on the other side of the Eagle River access. In discussions with staff recently, the suggestion was made to ask you tonight to say resolving the need to provide a 6-foot-high fence along the north property line with the planning division. And in that effort, we believe that we'll be able to show that it was not the Assembly's intent to put a 6-foot-high fence at the north property line, and that it doesn't make sense from a site plan standpoint to put in a 6-foot-high fence and effectively cut off a lot of open space and greenery that is enjoyed by the adjacent residential use north of that access drive. So we are going to be leaving a lot of material in native vegetation up there, and we don't believe that the fence does anything good. In fact, in some places it goes through wetlands, which we don't believe is a smart thing to do either. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Potter, for your information, you have exceeded the time limit by 2 minutes, and therefore you have no rebuttal time left. But there are questions. Let's begin first with Mr. Pruse. You're in the... All right. Okay. Thank you. Mr. Frederick.
Thank you. Through the chair, Mr. Potter, just 2 quick questions. You said that on the maze on the TIAs that the municipal traffic engineer will be the decider?
Yes.
The DOT will not?
Well, DOT will have a part in it, but it will have to have ultimate approval by both DOT and the city traffic engineer.
But he's the final.
Because right now, any driveway permit-related things are done by DOT, and they allow the city traffic engineer to participate in scoping what the study is going to look at. So if we have any driveway modifications, or if we exceed 10% of the peak hour trips that are generated, DOT will require us to do a TIA update. It doesn't mean that they'll require a full TIA, but the way that this read, it read as if the municipal traffic engineer, irregardless of what the conditions were, if it made sense, would require us to do a full TIA.
I got you on that. And did I understand Ms. Ritter to say that the TIA was done on the basis of the potential higher office space and parking allowance?
Yeah, what's interesting is that when we looked at this and the staff suggested that, we did a TIA based on typical office use based on IT manual numbers, and that we might have some specialty retail or specialty eateries. And we fully expect that most of the square footage in the buildings will be office related. And there may be, because the access is not wonderful from a circuitous standpoint, and that it would probably be a special service related retail, or it may be a small coffee shop or something else that would be there. That would provide primarily service to mostly people that are already going to be in those offices. The good news is that between 120,000 and 90,000, there's 30,000 square feet of building that of trips as a buffer. So the only way that we could get anywhere close to the 120,000 square feet is, as the staff indicated and Ms. Ritter indicated, is that if under the buildings in a terraced form, we put in parking structures under the footprint of the building as basically a basement level that would daylight out to the northwest. So every time we come in, the city is going to be able to review what it is that we're proposing. But in effect, we've got 30,000 square feet of space as a buffer to accommodate any additional trips that may have been perceived in excess based on these specialty eateries or retail.
All right. One last. On the fence on the north property line, I understand what you're after there, but do you it isn't indicated on your plans anywhere, and you apparently don't expect any pedestrian access to the project through that buffer. It appears that it's wet.
We did not put a trail access directly to the access drive for the residents to the north to come into the property. They do have access to the parallel trail along the old Glen Highway and would be able to come in. That's something that we could certainly pursue. We haven't talked to them to find out if they'd like a trail connection or not.
Yeah.
But when you look at the
there's wetlands in there. Is it real wet? I mean,
there are wetlands in there, and there is a creek drainage that runs through the area.
So it's not real straightforward.
It's I don't know that there'll be. I don't see a huge movement of people back and forth. If in fact it's something that the homeowners association over there would like to have, we'll put it on record that Eklutna Inc. is open to that discussion.
Jen, typically these kind of projects don't have a security fence around them anyway, do they?
No, there is a controlled access fence along the New Glen Highway. If in fact we try and get a connection to that trail, if we can get ADA grades in that, then we'll still have to go to DOT and get permission to put a break, even though it's pedestrian, through that controlled access line.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Wilson?
On the TIA that you prepared on page 85 of our packet, the mitigation analysis, you talked about the two driveways. You've got 120,000 square feet, and how many cars can park in the total? I didn't.
Peak AM would be 166 in and 22 out on the northern driveway, which is the shared driveway, and that will continue to operate at level of service A. Same thing in the peak evening hour.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the technical terms. I'm new to this, so I'm looking at it, and in the right in, right out driveway is fairly unambiguous. The other one is less unambiguous to me. It seems like you have the left turn lane, left turn coming out of the shared driveway crosses one of the busiest roads in Eagle River, right?
The old Glen, not at that location, but south of there is the busiest. Yeah.
And will that require a street light, a stoplight?
No.
So you've got a center turn lane?
If there were ever going to be another stoplight, it would be at the Fred Meyer driveway, which is further north.
Okay.
So, and what our traffic engineer in the city and states is looking at is that the functioning of the light at the Old Glen and the North Eagle River access is close enough that it actually helps platoon traffic, and that will help make the breaks. And everybody in town is striving to have level of service A, and that driveway is projected to continue to have level of service A. So.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Dean?
Through the chair, I have two questions. The first one is, how has the homeowners association reacted to this particular development?
I believe there's two homeowners here tonight.
Okay.
We have not received any comments from the homeowners association or the neighbors up until tonight.
So you have not been in touch with the
No.
homeowners association?
No.
Okay, and the next question I have is, judging by the three plans that you guys have put forward, there's only one with a building that's more than 40,000 square feet. So I'm assuming that only option one may come back to us as a site plan review?
Each building that's proposed will have to come back to the staff to do a specific site plan review to make sure that we're in significant conformance with what the master development plan is that you approved. May there be a little jog here or a little jog there. There may be, but if they believe that it changes the aspect of what you intended to do, it'll come back to you.
Thank you.
Ms. Pease?
Yes, a couple of quick questions for Mr. Potter. On condition 7, would it be acceptable just to say, to clarify by saying resolve with the non-motorized trails coordinator, and then continue?
You're asking about item 7?
Yeah, I could ask the staff the same question, but I'm just putting it to you.
Yeah, resolving the need feasibly. We did meet with planning staff, and we have discussed the issue with Lori Skanke, the non-motorized trail coordinator for the city. And the issue is going to be going out there and specifically looking. There's a couple items. One is the topography. And the site, as you can see, breaks off pretty sharply at points to the northwest, which is there adjacent to the trail. So number one, we have to get a break in the fence from DOT and get that approved. They may or may not have to take that to the Federal Highway Administration. The second then is to prove up on a route that would allow it to be ADA accessible, which may turn out to be a little bit more work in clearing of more trees than is appropriate. So we have to figure out if it's actually feasible to do that. And lastly, if you go further to the south, you go under a tunnel under the North Eagle River access, and then there is a paved trail that goes up to the intersection of the Old Glen and North Eagle River access, where there is a signalized pedestrian crossing that gets you then to the upper level of the properties, and it'd be accessible to everyone. So it's a question of if we can do it and we can get through all those functional pieces, we'll do it. The last stumbling block is whether or not the Urban Design Commission would allow us to have because technically you can't do any clearing within that 30 feet.
Yeah, but that's fine. I just wanted to insert the non-motorized trails coordinator as person involved.
Lori has been involved in the meetings to date and is going to be the one that we work this out with.
Okay. And then my other question is, with regard to that easement, would you be accepting of the sort of standard language about construction barrier and field markings to protect it during construction?
Could you repeat that one again?
Well, Condition 5 notes the 30-foot highway screening easement, and there's no language about fencing it, marking it before construction starts. So,
not a problem.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the commissioners? Mr. Pruz.
Thank you. I suppose I'm fairly familiar with this road on the Glen Highway since I redid it for the municipality or for the state half a dozen years ago, and I will. My recollection is, and I've been down Snowmobile Lane a few times. I actually did some improvements down there. I am a little concerned about the access and the egress of the one main access point, being that close to the intersection. From a traffic control standpoint, when we redid that intersection, actually we did the road all the way up to the lake over the years, especially down here with the Fred Meyer coming in and throwing more people actually will avoid this intersection here at North Eagle River and go use the north exit out of Fred Meyer. Mm-hmm. And actually come down and cross there. It's easier from the cross and put more put more pressure on that glen. I'm just surprised I don't see some type of either an access lane coming from the north to the south, or something. I'm just surprised at that, and just based on my my experience there and just how much busier. I will admit that to the south is a lot busier than the north, but we just finished a $10 million project north of here, maybe half a mile, and the traffic was quite a bit. It was surprising, especially during commute time. And I'm just wondering about what your thoughts on that.
Well, my thoughts are that the numbers and the trips were counted a year ago, so they are up-to-date numbers. We have a projection of square footage that will likely not be on the property, so we've got some built-in shock absorbing. And the separation, the location of the driveway into that's the common driveway between the residential development and this site, was really originally selected to be far enough south of the Eagle or the Fred Meyer driveway so that there's adequate separation there. And the deal was to try and get those as far apart as they could reasonably get them. Then the right-in, right-only that's further to the south is established from a location standpoint to be far enough away from the intersection to not be impeded by that backup or queuing that occurs there. So the distances have been looked at by our traffic engineers. It's been modeled, and we've actually run the modeled videos of what would happen and what works. And the separations appear to work better than one would think. And, you know, we are very confident in that modeling program and the counts that have been done and the projections that have been done. And it's really an issue of how far apart these driveways are. The good news is the Fred Meyer northern driveway is not directly across from that access. It's much further north. And if you look in some of your pictures that are in here, like on page 87, you can see just how far away that access point is. It's actually directly across from the northern access into the condominium project.
Is that 87 of our packet or yours?
87 of your packet, yeah. It's a black and white photo, aerial photo as part of the TIA.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a long way.
Well, I'm not a traffic engineer. I've just from experience over the last half a dozen years working in that location on the DOT road, that I find it's quite busy, and you know, I have to defer to what the state road if they think that they can handle it. Then
Well, the state participated in the scoping, made the demands of what we had to count and what we had to study, what the distribution numbers were going to be in percentages, and reviewed it, analyzed it, and approved it. So,
Are there any other questions by the commission to the petitioner's representative? Okay, thank you very much. We'll now open the public hearing. Are there people who wish to testify? Please come forward and clearly state your name. You will, if you are representing a group, you will have 5 minutes. If you are representing yourself as an individual, you will have 3 minutes. Please state your name and welcome.
Hello, thank you. My name is Jeremiah Osborne. I'm the president of the Fire Eagle Homeowners Association, and I'm representing them by proxy this evening. I would first like to answer a previous question by Mr. Pruse and Ms. Dean. The reason it seems that there has been no public comment on this is that through correspondence with all of the other board members, as well as all of the homeowners in the association that we have discussed with, no one received this public mailing. that seems to have been mailed out on June the 20th. So I'm not sure what happened there, but we have conversed with over 100 individuals, and none of them recall receiving this. The fence line, the 6-foot site obscuring fence line that's proposed along the northern property border, we feel is impractical to be there. We do agree with Mr. Potter that it doesn't need to be along the northern property border because the northern property border lays at the bottom of a 25-foot gully, and placing a 6-foot fence there would be pointless. We do feel that a 6-foot privacy site obscuring fence should be placed along the top of the access road. On page 73 of the packet, it says that the proposed site will access the Old Glen Highway via an existing shared access driveway north of the site. And then we reference on page 37 of this packet the right-of-way easement agreement between the Eklutna Corporation and the Fire Eagle Condominiums Association, and it states that the grantor has the right to move or otherwise relocate the access road to any location on the parcel, but it does not in this agreement state that the grantor has the right to demolish, reconstruct, and rezone that access road from residential to commercial grade. Just another comment for pedestrian access to the property. We don't feel that it's necessary to have any pedestrian access to the property. In fact, we would prefer that there's not an additional pedestrian access to the condominium association just for security's sake, that we would prefer to not have the additional pedestrian traffic wandering through our neighborhood. I also feel that I realized that the numbers on the TIA state that there will be 166 vehicles entering and exiting that property, but I find it hard to believe that as someone who drives past that small little driveway every morning on my way to work, that you're going to occupy 120,000 square feet of office space plus the customers that will be coming into there with 166 vehicles. I just find it hard to believe that that's a inaccurate survey. I think that's all that I have this evening. Thank you.
Does anyone have questions of the speaker? No. I have a couple of questions to ask you regarding the matter of public notice. How many condominiums or residences are there in Fire Eagle?
There is 141 residences.
And just stay put for a minute. May I ask staff how many notices for this hearing did you send out?
The packet indicates that 141 public notices were mailed on June 20th, 2011. I have the list here that shows the addresses that it was mailed to. I also have the copies of notices that were returned to sender, and I have 13.
If they were mailed on June 20th, is that the appropriate time for notice for a public hearing?
I'll have to refer to the code.
All right, thank you. Can you give me any further indication or information as to why you may not have received these notices?
I cannot attest to that at all. My wife and I check our mail every day. We all have secured mailboxes in the neighborhood. And Thursday of last week, I held a board meeting, and we had open discussion, and at that point in time, no one had received one of these notices yet.
How many people were in attendance at your board meeting?
The meeting was just the board of directors at that, but following the meeting, we had verbal correspondence with approximately 70 homeowners, all of them confirming that they had not received the letter yet.
Have you had any, aside from these public notices, have you had any contact by the petitioner or the petitioner's representative as the president of the Fire Eagle Homeowners Association, or have any of your other board members been in contact with them?
We had some brief email correspondence with Karen Ivanson, I believe.
From the staff? Mm-hmm.
Yes, as far as the proposed documents and such went.
But no contact from the petitioner or the petitioner's representative?
Correct.
Okay. Are there, Ms. Pease, you're in the queue.
Yes. Could you please elaborate on your concern about the driveway construction? You said the homeowners or you didn't favor a commercial grade driveway. Was there something specific about the design of the driveway that was objectionable?
Well, just the fact that there's one road in and one road out of this entire subdivision. Right now it's graded for residential use, and we don't see anywhere in our agreement with the Eklutna Properties where they have the right to demolish and upgrade that residentially graded road to a commercial use. So, since none of us are really keen on sharing our driveway with a commercial building, this was just one of the ways that we saw to bring that to light.
Okay, thanks. I was just looking for was there something about the width or the...
No, I actually haven't. I don't know what the proposed dimensions of that would be.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions from this public comments? Regarding the time? May I ask staff, are legal holidays sufficient to be included? Legal holidays and weekends as far as public notice is concerned?
I'll have to search through the code, but I was informed that it's a 21-day notice period.
Mm-hmm.
So this was mailed on June 20th. Today is July 11th.
Mm-hmm.
And the distance is 600 feet, mailing distance.
So that would include all of the residents of Fire Eagle, or not?
The number seems to correspond with 141 notices that were mailed.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Pruz, you're in the queue.
Under your board, or how you would do things, if you were given, you actually, obviously if you got the notice, then I would assume you'd call a general membership meeting to get all the input from your members, your homeowners. Is that how? What is your methodology to get input and then present? Have you had a chance to do that? What have you done, or what has your association done? Is this just like something you've done very, very fast just to get something in front of us without everybody having a chance to participate within your group?
Correct. This is something that we did very last minute. After we received the documents through email, when the public hearing notices were posted on the trees adjacent to the property. Pending the turnout of this evening's hearing, we will send formal notices out to all homeowners, and we will host a meeting open to all homeowners, and we'll have signed documents with proxy vote for their general intent with a majority consensus.
Thank you.
Any other comments from commission members at this time? Mr. Pruse.
Well, I'm new, obviously, to this commission, but I'm concerned about the procedure, about the fact that a stakeholder in this, that we're going to make a decision where there is some question as to notice and I guess allow the public comment coming back to us. I don't know quite what the procedure is, but I feel a little bit uneasy about actually voting on something with this question. I think it's a nice looking project, master plan. I would like to get some, based on my history on that highway there, on the Old Glen Highway, and the traffic and the access, which I brought up earlier before the association testified, to get some more input, if at all, if it would come. I'm not quite sure how this really works, Madam Chairman, but my personal feeling is that I'm a little concerned about voting on something without having the more public input.
If I can make a recommendation to you, Commissioner Pruse, under those circumstances, I believe it would be appropriate for you to make a motion for a postponement, which would then also require a second. But before we do that, Ms. Iverson is in the queue. Do you have additional information for us?
Yes, in 2115-005, notice of public hearings says all notices of public hearings shall be published, mailed, or posted at least 21 days before the public hearing.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Pease, you're in the queue.
Yes, it would appear that the letter of the public notice was met, just exactly, with no room to spare. But I'm wondering, was there any other communication, Ms. Iverson, to you or to the city staff offices that you know of about people saying, I just heard about this and don't know what's going on?
I had 2 inquiries on this. I do not know from the public. I do not know whether or not they got notice of it through the mail or from the posting. I did not hear anything else regarding the notices.
Okay. And posting, as far as?
The posting affidavit was turned in, pictures of the signs. I visited the site. The signs were there. I can say that since I have in the file the notices that were returned, that they would have been mailed. So I know how many returned, and I can feel very, very confident that the notices then would have been mailed.
Okay. Thank you.
In the queue, Mr. Wilson.
I just wanted to ask you, how did you hear about it and when?
I saw the signs that were posted on the adjacent property on my way home from work one evening.
About when was that? Just curious.
It was probably about 2 weeks ago. I'm sure that the signs were posted in a timely manner.
Okay. Just wondered what people are seeing. And you have a direct interest in this, both individually and as a representative of your homeowners association. So you had every incentive to keep your eye peeled. Had you heard anything about this project before that?
I had not, no.
Okay. I agree that we should be postponing for public, more opportunity for the public, even though the letter of the law was met.
Mr. Parks.
Is there something else that you would like the petitioner to do other than look at the access of that one driveway? Is there any other concerns that other people had as you represent them here as part of as the president of their association?
Aside from the road, if I may come around the front here and point to their diagram. The fence line is
sorry, sir, we need you in the mic. Thank you.
Sorry about that. The fence line right here, this is their proposed location for the 6-foot visual privacy fence. This is the current residential access road, and right here is about a 25, well, it's about 30 feet here, scaling down to grade at the bottom, with the fence line being 30 feet below the road. So as is proposed on this drawing, it provides no visual obstruction to the commercial site over here. We feel that the site, or this fence, does not need to be here, and that if there were a fence to be put in place, that it should be up closer to the road or on the south side of this road, where it would actually provide a visual obstruction.
That and the driveway are the two issues that you have?
Yes.
Okay. There's one more question. Mr. Pruse.
Would you be open to Eklutna to give a presentation to your association? Should we postpone this prior to that?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from commissioners? Thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Are there any other members or any other people in the audience who would like to testify at this time? Seeing and hearing none, the public meeting is closed.
I have a question. Oh, sorry. Didn't.
Okay. I've been informed to put on the public record that there is no more time left for the petitioner's representative for rebuttal. However, if any of the commissioners have a question of the petitioner or the petitioner's representatives, they may ask them at this time. Ms. Pease.
Yes, Mr. Potter, two questions. One, can you tell us again, I think I heard you say that you did not meet or attempt to meet with the Homeowners Association, but could you just verify that, and also whether you met or communicated with the Community Council for the area?
We did not contact or have any discussions, to my knowledge, and I don't believe Eklutna did either, with the Homeowners Association. Clearly, based on our history in the past, Eklutna and Dallas Cam has always been open and willing to meet with everyone. We did post the site on June 8th and put the signs up on everywhere that it's exposed to a public right-of-way, so 3 sides.
Community Council?
We did not go to the Community Council either.
Okay. And what would a delay of a month mean to your approval schedule?
Technically, there's not going to be any construction that would likely occur this season, given that before you can even get a permit to do anything, even grading, you have to go to the Urban Design Commission. I don't believe that will be a problem. It's just another month that we can't necessarily market the property. Problem has been in the past that as potential users have approached Eklutna, they've had to say that we have to go through this master plan process and it'll take this much time, and the 2 parties that have been interested walked away because they would have lost a year. So a month does not make a difference. We have no objection to going and meeting with the Community Council. If they're meeting this summer, we don't have any objection at all meeting with the Homeowners Association, whether it's the entirety or just the board. Not a problem. But if it is opened up to a bunch of new people come and testify, we'd like to have our ability to also have our 10 minutes as well, to be able to address a lot of the issues that the opposition or supporters will be bringing up.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Potter and members of the Commission, the public hearing has been closed, so we would then need to reopen the public hearing under those circumstances that you've described, Ms. Pease. Are there any other questions at this time?
I have just a question on procedure. If we reopen the public hearing, does that then give the petitioner an additional presentation and rebuttal time?
Yes, it does.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Pruz.
I move to postpone case number 2011-073 to such time that Eklutna has made a presentation both to the Community Council and to the Homeowners Association, adjacent Homeowners Association in Eagle River with regards to this project.
Okay, thank you. The motion has been seconded by Mr. Wilson. Do either one of you have any additional comments to make? Okay. I do see Ms. Pease and then Ms. Dean in the queue. Ms. Pease.
Yes, I just wanted to state, especially for the benefit of Ms. Iverson, that it does appear that the letter of the law for public notice, she did meet the letter of the law in sending out the notices, and it also appears that the property was posted in a timely manner. It's unfortunate that for whatever reason, people did not receive notice. It's also unfortunate that the petitioner usually, or sometimes, makes an overture to the Community Council. But I just wanted to say that the letter of the law was met, and given the petitioner's willingness to, I appreciate the petitioner's willingness to speak more with the Community Council and the Homeowners Association. That makes it easier for us. So that's all.
Okay. All right. Ms. Dean.
Through the chair, I just had one statement to make, and that was community councils are closed in the summer usually. So I don't know in this case if they were going to have meetings in the summer or not, but that may affect the timeline.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Pease, again? Or are you still in the...
Well, no, they aren't necessarily closed. I mean, many community councils do meet through the summer, and if it's an important issue, they should take the advantage. So, anyway.
All right. Ms. Iverson, do you have comments or advice for us here, this matter administratively?
Yes. I just wanted to clarify whether or not the municipality would need to renotice, send the public notices.
I believe that in this particular case that it would be necessary and advisable. So I would entertain a slight amendment to Mr. Pruz's motion to include a renotice.
I agree.
Okay. I'm sorry, what? No friendly amendments. I've been informed that we are no longer allowed to have friendly amendments, so we need to have a motion for the first and then a motion for, it can be put together, and the notice and the reopening. I seem to be having a little issue here. All right. Motion to amend. Mr. Frederick.
I move to amend the motion to include renoticing of the public hearing according to the municipal code.
Thank you. And that motion has been accepted by, has been seconded by Ms. Pease. Is there any, the Secretary would like a clarification.
I'm sorry, Mr. Frederick, you wanted the public hearing renoticed. Did you intend to include in that the public hearing would be reopened, because you didn't specifically state that, even though it's been discussed?
Was that not part of the initial motion?
No, sir, I don't believe it was. Just a second. No, the original motion was just to postpone until the petitioner had met with the community council and the adjacent homeowners.
All right, then I will change my motion for amendment to reopen the public hearing and have that public hearing renoticed according to municipal code.
Thank you. Ms. Pease, do you agree? Yes. Yes. So it has been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Is there any objection? That motion to amend has passed. Now do we have to do the main motion? Now we have to do the main motion for the postponement. Back to Mr. Pruse's motion and seconded by Mr. Wilson. Is there objection? Seeing and hearing none, that motion also passes. Thank you. That concludes our public hearings for this evening. I do have a couple of matters from the chair that I would like to discuss with the commission. The first is the matter of the director's lunch, and those of you that looked at your emails today, we found that there was not enough attendance, and so the Wednesday director's lunch has been postponed. My recommendation is that we go to a quarterly lunch, or we may meet as needed prior to for long-term range discussions, planning at a more convenient time, such as perhaps 5:30 occasionally. Mr. Wilson, do you have a comment?
I support meeting before this meeting because there seems to be a hard to get all of us at the midweek meetings.
All right, thank you. The Secretary has a comment to make regarding that matter.
I did notice in the email a suggestion of meeting like in the conference room over there, and I did want to point out that the director's lunch is a public notice meeting, and so the meeting would either have to be held here or in one of the main public conference rooms at the library, because there's no public access back to those two conference rooms, and I just wanted to make sure you all understood that.
Thank you for that sort of logistical information. I think, however, I do support Mr. Wilson's comment that the best time for these sorts of long-range planning types of informative meetings is prior to our meeting, and so hopefully, if everyone does concur, we will make that recommendation to the director. Are there any other questions or comments? And is that how everyone feels? Please do not pack up yet. We have one other important matter to discuss. Thank you. All right. So in the matter of resolutions regarding Potter Creek development, I, as the acting chair, or as the vice chair, am not able to sign those resolutions, but in the interest of expediency, I would like to propose an acting vice chair who could act in that capacity to sign the resolutions that have been approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission this evening, and I would entertain a motion for Mr. Frederick to become the acting vice chair to sign those recommendations. I see a motion to approve from Mr. Frederick and seconded by Stacy Dean. Are there? I know I can't make the motion, so I can recommend that we do that. Mr. Frederick, did you want to make a motion? Right. So, well, under those circumstances, do we have another commissioner? Mr. Wilson.
I gladly move that Mr. Frederick become our acting vice chair.
Thank you very much. It's been seconded by Ms. Dean. Are there any, is there any objection to the motion? Seeing and hearing none, that motion is approved. Thank you very much. And this meeting is now motion to.
Wait, I got it. I want to say something.
Oh, okay.
I'd like to make a comment that our Madam Chair did a great job tonight.
Thank you very much. Ms. Pease, do you have a comment?
No, encore.
Thank you very much. All right. I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Mr. Frederick and Mr. Pruse, thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.
Yeah.